What's up, Motocross Action? I'm Josh Mosiman, and 2021 bike season is coming at us quick, and every day we're getting one step closer to Motocross Action's 2021 450 Shootout. Today, we're getting ready to ride the 2021 Yamaha YZ450F. Yamaha made a big push in developing their 2020 YZ450F, and it showed on the track, as the 2020 model was the best YZ450F that the MXA Wrecking Crew had tested since they introduced their backwards engine design back in 2010. Last year, the model wasn't all new, as we normally would say when the bike has been completely revamped from head to toe. However, it did get a lot of updates that translated into big changes on the track. As for the major updates, the 2020 YZ450F engine got a new cylinder head that was 10 millimeters more narrow than before. They moved the camshafts 14 millimeters closer together, lowered them 6 millimeters, and angled the camshafts to be more vertical by 7 degrees. With the new valve angles and the cam positions, they also reshaped the combustion chamber, reduced its volume, and raised the compression. The last big change they made to the engine was lengthening the connecting rod by 1.5 millimeters. The longer rod doesn't affect bore and stroke, but it does lessen heat inside the engine, allow for a quicker rev, and a big reduction in decompression braking or engine braking when coasting into corners. The 2020 Yamaha has a snappy throttle response, smooth power in the mid-range, and then it hits hard again in the high RPM range, reaching its peak horsepower at 58.5 at 9,700 RPM. Last year, the MXA Wrecking Crew appreciated the ability to hit corners that were typically second gear turns in third. Why is that? Well, riding a higher gear allows the rear wheel to roll more freely, and you're able to carry the bike through ruts and over bumps easier. Along with the free revving and snappy throttle response, our testers also appreciated the minimal amount of engine braking that it had. For the same reason why riding a gear higher in the corner settles the chassis and allows you to ride smoother, less engine braking has the same effect coming into corners. As for the chassis on the 2020 model, the aluminum spars on the frame next to the fuel tank got a new thickness, the aluminum spars on the engine cradle got updated, they went from steel engine mounts to aluminum engine mounts, and the head stays went from aluminum to steel with a new, thinner thickness. The triple clamp and front axle also received updated thicknesses as well. Unfortunately, Yamaha spent all the time and money they had developing their all-new YZ250F for this year, and they left the YZ450F the same. The 2021 YZ450 model only has new graphics, blue number plates instead of white, and black fork guards. Although the new 2021 Yamaha YZ450F is exactly the same as it was last year, I'm still excited to jump on a fresh model, as our 2020 has been through the ringer and it's showing its wear and tear. Stay tuned to the end of this video for first ride impressions on the new 2021 Yamaha YZ450F. Alright guys, day one of testing on the 2021 Yamaha YZ450F is over with. I put over 2 hours on the bike. The track is rough and it was an awesome day. Yamaha brought out the full crew for us. They had Travis Preston, Steven Tokarski, Steve Butler, Mike Ulrich, 2 box vans, a full spread of tacos for lunch. It was first class service, as Steven was even putting the bike on the stand for me. Now let's dive into my first impressions. The first thing I noticed once I jumped on the Yamaha after riding the new Husky and Kawasaki 450s recently was the ergonomics. Unless you ride Yamaha all the time, the bike feels wide, tall, and bulky. It's wider in the shroud area, and the shorter foot peg to seat height is a little different than other brands as well. Another thing I noticed was the snappy throttle response off the bottom end. Although this bike is 15 pounds heavier than the lightest bike in its class, it doesn't feel as heavy because of the extreme responsive throttle off the bottom end. Like last year, the bar mounts are placed in the front hole in the turned back position in the top triple clamp, and last year I went back and forth with them in this position position and further back. Pretty much all of our testers liked them back further, and I had pros and cons with them in each position as I'm a pretty tall guy. Today, I decided to leave them in the forward position as this is the way they come off the showroom floor. I started out with the sag at Yamaha's recommended 102, but unfortunately I really wasn't comfortable on it to begin with. I felt like the rear end of the bike was too high, and I had troubles getting comfortable coming into corners. On a smoother and tighter track, 102 might have been the way to go, but with the steep hills and braking bumps we have here at Glen Helen, I felt like I was too far forward. The first change we made was stiffening up the rebound in the forks and lowering the sag down to 104, and man, that was awesome. I felt so much better and immediately found more confidence coming into corners. However, I knew I could go faster and I had more in the tank if I just felt a little more confident in the bike. I asked the Yamaha guys to go even lower in the rear end to a 106 sag. They were reluctant and convinced me to try to go stiffer on the forks, so we did, and I liked it, but I still wanted to go lower in the rear end. I was kind of expecting the 106 sag to be a little bit worse because the Yamaha guys were so reluctant and so weary of me making that change, but I wanted to try it out. Still, I felt even better with the 106, and I was really surprised. But after checking with Jody on what we did last year for settings, we were right at 105, so 106 is right in the range that we liked. We then stiffened up the rebound in the forks and lowered the sag down to 104, and man, it was such a big change. As far as fork and shock action, I was impressed. There were a few times where I slammed into bumps that would have knocked me around a little more on another brand, but the SSS forks soaked it up easily and inspired more confidence coming down these hills. The power on the YZ450F is extremely responsive at the crack of the throttle, and it gives you a lot of excitement, but then it smoothens out after you open it up to keep the front end down and keep the bike in the rut as you exit the corners. The 2019 YZ450 and models prior had much more power down low, and they would wheelie out of corners easily. Luckily, Yamaha fixed this last year by mellowing out the power in the bottom end. The Yamaha hits hard right at the crack of the throttle, then smoothens out and then comes into the power again towards the top range. This does help with coming out of corners, but still I wanted to find a little more traction coming out of corners and keep the front end down as I wheelied up these hills. So we played with a lot of different maps today, going back and forth from stock map to the popular TP3 map that we used last year, and even a new Travis Preston 5 map or TP5 map that Yamaha came up with, which was even smoother on the bottom. I like these maps when the track was smoother, but anyone who's been to Glen Helen knows that this place gets rough in the afternoon, and that's when I put my focus into trying other maps. Yamaha test rider Steven Tokarski is a buddy of mine, and we spun some laps together at the end of the day to have some fun. He developed the GC5 map, which stands for Good Control 5. I asked for something more mellow, and he plugged this one into the Yamaha Power Tuner app on his smartphone and had me ready to go quickly. Right away, I was sold on the mellow map. I felt like I could ride much harder and charge through the corners without worrying as much about what the bike was going to do underneath me. Even with the GC5 map, the bike was still fast and responsive on the bottom. However, I felt like I could charge a lot harder and also save more energy without worrying about the bike getting away from me. As they've had previously, Yamaha still has their Power Tuner app, which is available on your smartphone, and they also have all these maps that we tried today, the TP3, TP5, and GC5 stock maps and more. So if you have a Yamaha or if you're interested in getting one, check out their website. We're going to add a link to the Yamaha website with all their maps in the description below, and there you can go on your smartphone, download all the maps, and then plug them into your bike via the Yamaha Power Tuner app and the Wi-Fi setting on your bike. Overall, it was an awesome day riding the 2021 Yamaha YZ450F. We were a little bit bummed that they didn't make any updates. However, this bike was solid last year, still solid this year, and other brands have made big changes. So it is going to be interesting to see if the changes on the other brands will make them better or worse. So we're super excited to put this bike up against our other ones in the 2021 Motocross Action 450 Shootout. For a full in-depth review on the 2021 Yamaha YZ450F, check out a future issue of Motocross Action Magazine, and also stay tuned to motocrossactionmag.com and our YouTube channel for more first ride videos. Make sure to click that subscribe button so you stay up to date with our latest videos. And also, if you haven't had the chance to see our first ride video on the new Kawasaki KX450 or the updated Husqvarna FC450, here's your chance.